Uh, Last week we talked about many, in my Father's house are many mansions and everything. We talked a lot about houses and how that pertains to the Word of God and everything. So I stumbled on some stuff I thought y'all might find interesting, and it's going to be kind of a continuation on that as I was studying. The ultimate house of God was the temple Solomon built, right? That was the big one.
That was the ultimate.
There's I want to talk about it today. There's a lot of things in the temple in the building of the temple that are really important with what God's Word. First thing we know, Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem because his father David wanted to, but God told David, this is important. This is important. The reason he didn't want David to build the temple was because David had done too much war. He had fought in too many wars and killed too many people and done too much. And so I never really put this together, but God, I just thought David had defeated everybody, and so, there wasn't nobody else left to fight, so Solomon had peace. But Solomon having a reign of peace was part of God's plan for building the temple. And we'll see that too. He told David, I don't want you to build it, but God didn't require it to start with. Remember, he had the tent, the tabernacle that Moses and all had carried around, the temporary place. That's what God had used before, and he really didn't require it. But it's just kind of my own personal opinion. You know how the people of Israel, God told them they didn't need a king, and they had a fit. They said, "Oh no, we want a king. We want to be like everybody else. We want a king." So God gave them a king, and I think, but then their God didn't have a temple, and back in those days, everybody had these huge temples built to their God. All these false, fake idols and everything. And just look at Greece. Remember Greece? It was covered in all kind of temples and different things that people built for all these false gods. And I think, and it's kind of in my own opinion here, David probably got to looking around and said, well, all these fake gods have these great temples. I want to build my God a temple. I want my God, I love my God so much. I want him to have the biggest and the best. I kind of feel like that's how David looked at it. Yeah. And but anyway, God told him, I tell you, he said, he told David he could go ahead and prepare for it. He said, you go ahead and start gathering materials, and I'm going to give you the plan. God gave David the plan for the building of the temple. That's important. Because David had to give that plan to Solomon. And Solomon built it. God didn't give the plan to Solomon. He gave it to David. Yeah. David had to give the plan to Solomon. And let's just go ahead and look at 1 Chronicles 28. And we'll start in verse 11. It says, Then David gave to Solomon his son the pattern of the porch, and of the house thereof, and of the treasuries thereof, and of the upper chambers thereof, and the inner parlors thereof, and the place of the mercy seat, and the pattern of all that he had by the Spirit, of the courts of the house of the Lord. and of all the chambers round about of the treasuries of the house of God, and the treasuries of the dedicated things, also for the courses of the priests and the Levites, and for all the work of the service of the house of the Lord, and for all the vessels of the service in the house of the Lord. He gave of gold by weight for all things of gold, for all instruments, all manners of service, silver, all instruments of silver by weight, for all instruments of every kind of service, even the weight for the candlesticks of gold, and for their lamps of gold, by weight for every candlestick, and for the lamps thereof, and for the candlesticks of silver by weight, both for the candlestick, also for the lamps thereof, according to the use of the candlesticks. And it goes on and on and on. But even down when he said, make this candlestick out of gold, that wasn't just a blank statement. When God gave David the plan, he said, make this candlestick out of gold, and it needs to have enough gold in it to where it weighs this much. He gave him the weight of it. So David knew how much gold he needed. He didn't just go out and gather gold and silver and all this at random. Maybe this will be enough, or surely this will be plenty. Surely this will be enough. He knew how much he needed by weight. God gave him so detailed. It kind of reminds you of reading the Old Testament when he was giving Moses instructions on different laws and different things, and he told Moses, do it this way and exactly this way and exactly this way, and everything is done exact. It's not just a random, like I said, he didn't just say build a candlestick. He gave him exact details on what he wanted for everything. Everything in the temple. He gave him incredible instructions, very detailed. How much cedar he needed, how much stone he needed, everything. He gave him all that. David knew how much to gather. I'm dragging that out on purpose. All that plays a part in it. David purchased the land where the temple was going to be put. He purchased, in Chronicles, he purchased it from a guy named Ornan. He purchased the site. And it just so happens that site is on top of Mount Moriah. And if that sounds familiar, Mount Moriah is the exact spot where the temple's sitting in the same exact spot where Abraham was going to offer up Isaac.
Yep.
Wow.
That same spot.
Wow.
It's the same spot. David had built an altar there earlier when he numbered the people and God put the plague on Israel and killed 70,000 people. David, that's where David built his altar for that sin. Mount Moriah was already a very spiritual place. And we know all that cedar that was in it, that come from Lebanon. There was a guy named Hiram. Let me read 1 Kings 5:1. Hiram says, and Hiram, king of Tyre, sent his servants unto Solomon, for he had heard that they had anointed him king in the room of his father. And Hiram was ever a lover of David. And Solomon sent to Hiram, saying, thou knowest how that David my father could not build a house under the name of the Lord for his God, for the wars which were about him on every side, until the Lord put them under the soles of his feet. But now the Lord my God hath given me rest on every side, so there is neither adversary nor evil occurrent. And behold, I purpose to build a house under the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord spake unto David my father, saying, thy son, whom I will set upon thy throne in thy room, he shall build a house unto my name. Now therefore command thou that they hew me cedar trees out of Lebanon, and my servants shall be with thy servants, and unto thee I will give hire for thy servants according to all that thou shalt appoint. And for thou knowest that there is not among us any that can skill to hew timber like unto the Sidonians. And it came to pass, when Hiram heard the words of Solomon, that he rejoiced greatly, and said, Blessed be the Lord this day, which hath given unto David a wise son over this great people. And Hiram sent to Solomon, saying, I have considered the things which thou sentest to me for, and I will do all thy desire concerning timber of cedar, and concerning timber of fir. My servant shall bring them down from Lebanon unto the sea, and I will convey them by the sea in floats unto the place that thou shalt appoint me, and will cause them to be discharged there, and thou shalt receive them, and thou shalt accomplish my desire in giving food for my household. So it says, and then it says, so Hiram gave Solomon cedar trees and fir trees according to all his desire. Now we know those cedars of Lebanon were something else. You know, they were the best wood there was in the time. And he sent them, he cut them, put them in on floats in the sea, and sent them to Jerusalem. And gave Solomon all he desired of the cedar trees. So then they organized the workforce. They had 30,000 laborers, 70,000 burden bearers, 80,000 stone cutters, 3,300 overseers. The huge stones were quarried. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me read another verse to you. This one here is where it starts getting really, really interesting. 1 Kings 6 and 7 says, there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was building.
Wow.
No sound in the temple when it was being built. How about that? You ever been to a construction site?
Noisy.
You ever,
Can't
all
hear
the
yourself
noise?
think.
I mean, I know they didn't have saws and different tools like that back then, but it still had to be very noisy in a construction area doing anything. Imagine trying to do that in silence. No sound. Whatever reason, that was one of God's rules. No sound in the building of the temple. They had to quarry the stones. They had to quarry the stones, cut them, shape them, fit them together, and then transport them without damaging them. Well, they had to mark them so they'd know, this is, number 007. It goes on top of 008.
Yeah.
They had to number them. They pretty much, they kind of had to build the temple twice. They had to build it at the quarry, fit everything together, make sure everything fit, take it apart, carefully transport it. Can you imagine doing all that and then getting it right before you set it in its place, chip the corner off? Gotta start all over. Take that down and go, you can't just, or it don't fit just exactly perfect, and you just need to take one little shave off of it, but you got to take it all the way back out and go, you can't just knock that little bit off to make it fit perfect. And but they did that. And here's where I'm going. I'll go ahead and give you a little preview of why this is kind of so amazing. He didn't want no tools of iron. That sounds kind of funny. What would be the reasoning for that? Mostly that stuff is used in war. That stuff is used to kill people. It's used. Remember David couldn't build the temple because of all the war and the murder and people he killed. God didn't want those tools used to build his temple. He didn't want no fighting going on with Solomon. He wanted peace. He wanted a time of peace, no war. He made everything, and God set everything up perfect, just right. And so I'll tell you some more about that in a minute. Let me finish telling you about the temple. The dimensions of the temple was 90 feet long, 30 feet wide, 45 feet high. Made out of three main areas. Had the porch, which is like the entrance. Then it had the holy place, and then it had the most holy place, the Holy of Holies, where nobody could go in, or only once a year the priest could go back there. But that was it. That was very similar to the tabernacle. Tabernacle was built kind of the same way. Remember, I told y'all before, the whole interior had to be lined with cedar wood, overlaid in gold. The whole inside. 1 Kings 6:21 tells us that. It says Solomon overlaid the house within with pure gold. The whole thing was covered in gold. They had carvings on the wall of cherubim, had palm trees, open flowers. All that was on the carvings on the walls. And inside the holiest of holies, there was these two giant cherubim, like angels. They were giant, and they were both overlaid in gold, solid gold inside there. And when the ark was finally brought in, put back there in the holiest of holies, the priests come out, God come down, the whole place filled with smoke. In 1 Kings 8 and 10, it says the house was filled with the Lord. Yeah. It was complete. He built it. So how long did it take? Solomon was in his 4th year being king when he started construction. Did a lot of planning to get ready. Finished it in his 11th year. Took 7 years to build the temple of God. Now let's go back and talk about preparing those stones. Like I said, iron was used for primarily for war. It was something God didn't want used. And if we look all the way back, let's go to. That's not a new rule God just created. Let's go back to Deuteronomy 27. Deuteronomy 27 says, "And Moses, with the elders of Israel, commanded the people, saying, Keep all the commandments which I command to you this day. And it shall be on this day," this is when they're getting ready to go into the promised land, "when you pass over Jordan unto the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, that thou shalt set up great stones and plaster them with plaster." Alright, they're going to cover. That's exactly what that means. I looked that up. You're going to cover these stones with plaster, just like what we'd call. That's what we call it today, like sheetrock, drywall, mud, whatever you want to call it, plaster. Cover them stones with plaster. "And thou shalt write upon them all the words of the law when thou art passed over, that thou mayest go into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, a land that floweth with milk and honey, as the Lord thy God of the fathers hath promised thee. Therefore it shall be, when you be gone over Jordan, that ye shall set up these stones which I commanded you this day in Mount Ebal, and thou shalt plaster them with plaster." Alright, listen to this part. "And there shalt thou build an altar unto the Lord, an altar of stones. Thou shalt not lift up any iron tool upon them. Thou shalt build the altar, the Lord thy God, of whole stones. Thou shalt offer burnt offerings thereon unto the Lord thy God. Thou shalt offer peace offerings. Thou shalt eat there. Thou shalt rejoice before the Lord thy God. Thou shalt," listen to this, "thou shalt write upon the stones all the words of this law very plainly." Okay, so how do you write upon a stone without
using tools.
without using a tool, without using iron or steel or something like that? Because they didn't just want to use a pencil and write these words that would be gone in a day. They wanted these words to be there forever.
They use berries?
Huh?
Did they use berries?
Berries?
Yeah.
No.
They had ink?
No, they carved it.
Oh.
They carved
Oh,
the stone.
wow.
They carved it. With what? What did they carve it with? Well, I got an answer for you.
Come on, brother.
It's one of those crazy ones again. This is what got me to thinking. This is what, if you look back, this, I got a couple examples in the Bible, but this didn't come from the Bible. This comes from my other source, the Talmud. They say that Moses had this tool called a shamar, shamir, and it was a special tool. Don't know what it was made out of, but it would cut stone like butter. I mean, it said it would rip a stone open like nothing. And that's what they used to carve those words into the stone. And so later on, don't know what happened to it, don't know where it went, what happened. Solomon inquired. He was like, we need that shamir. So there's stories in there. I won't get into all the details, whatever, but it says in the Talmud, it says, according to the story, King Solomon asked his advisors how the stones for the temple could be prepared without the use of an axe or a chisel, as it was inappropriate to use tools of bloodshed and war to construct such a building. They told him of the miraculous shamir, but did not know where to find it. If these sources, they say this Talmud, I've told y'all, this is not some outside people saying this. This is what the Hebrews say. They tell this story. This is what the people of Israel tell. This is not the enemies telling this story. This is Israel telling this story. They say Solomon consulted evil spirits to locate this tool.
Wow.
And he located it. And but it's, I don't know if that's I definitely wouldn't say that's true. I wouldn't stand on that as being the word of God or whatever, but it is a story that Israel tells. You know, but so they say that's what he used that tool in the building of the temple. And there, in a couple of verses in the Bible, Jeremiah 17:1 says, the sin of Judah is written with a pen of iron and with the point of a diamond. It says the point of a diamond, but the Hebrew word that was translated from the Greek is shamir. It said it is graven upon the tablet of their heart and upon the horns of the altar. It said it says that those sins were written with a shamir, is what the Hebrew says. But when they translated it for us, they put the word diamond. And then in Ezekiel 3:9, it says, as an adamant, harder than flint. Adamant, that same word was translated, that was a shamir. And that word was translated when they did the Bible. And it said, the Hebrew writing says shamir. As a shamir, harder than flint, I have made thy forehead. Fear them not, neither be dismayed by their looks, though they be a rebellious house. God was telling Ezekiel that he had made him spiritually hard and resolute against opposition. Made him hard as that shamir. And so that was some crazy things I seen in the building of the temple. But also, and it talked about in Ezekiel where it talked about Judah's sin was engraved with that shamir. That meant it was engraved deeply and permanently. So, what do you think? What do you think Solomon done? He was still a pretty young guy. Took him 7 years to build the temple. He probably had some materials left over. He had this incredible workforce that were good at what they were doing and everything. What do you think he did? I think I'll build me a palace. So he took 7 years to build God's temple. He built him a palace that took 13 years. 1 Kings 7 says it. Solomon was building his own house. 13 years he finished his house. He made it. The temple, I told you, was 90 feet long. He made his house 150 feet long. The temple was 30 feet wide. He made his house 75 feet wide. But he made it the same height, 45 feet. You know what they called his house? I never knew this till today. They called his house the house of the forest of Lebanon. They said it took the whole forest of Lebanon to build that house. He used up the whole forest to build it. That's what it's called. The house of the forest of Lebanon.
I guess Hiram
Hiram.
gave him all that wood.
Hiram gave him all that wood. And built this house too. Said it's a massive hall supported by rows of cedar pillars. That's what and the Bible calls it. That's what the Bible calls it. 1 Kings 7 and 2 says he built also the house of the forest of Lebanon. That's what the Bible calls it. The first area there he had was, they called it a porch. That was where he did all his judgments. He would sit out there on that porch and judge people. You know, that's where we all know Solomon's wisdom and everything. That's where he would sit out there on that porch. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't like, don't picture like a front porch of one of our houses. You know, I mean, this thing was like a, you know, picture an arena or something, you know. It's not, I'm not talking about, you know, something with a couple of rocking chairs sitting on it. This is big time. That's just what they call it, the porch. Then it had his personal residence where he lived, and then I guess one of the main wives that he had was when he started out. You know, back in those days, it was common to make an alliance with different countries, and so he married the daughter of Pharaoh of Egypt to have peace with Egypt. You know, they have like an alliance with them. So he built her own house inside of his place. So that kind of reminded me of in my father's house, my father's house with many mansions. She had a mansion inside of Solomon's house. You know, so she had her own house inside his house. And, you know, you can say, was it wrong for Solomon to like double what he did for the Lord? Maybe, maybe not. Remember, I told you, God gave all the plans for his temple. He had Solomon build it exactly how he said to build it. Solomon didn't add to it. He didn't take away from it. He built exactly what God told him to build. Right? And then he built what he wanted to build.
He was a good builder.
I mean, he was a man, you know. Hey, I've got it. Why not build it?
Right.
You know, at that time, Israel was, they were on top of the world. I told you, they made silver as worthless as stones in the street. Remember the Queen of Sheba, when she came and saw how Solomon lived and how his servants lived, she was like, this guy's, when the servants walked in and she seen how the servants were dressed, she fell off her chair. She couldn't believe it. She was like, this guy's servants are living better than most kings of the earth. You know, these guys are dressed in like royalty, and they're the servants. And when she seen his palace and God's temple and all the gold and Solomon's wisdom, how he sat out there on that porch and judged and ran things, it was unbelievable, unbelievable. So don't, you know, we don't want to hold that against Solomon. He made a lot of mistakes for sure. What man hadn't? And but he did what God told him to do as far as the temple goes. He built it. Said God gave exact details, perfect details. Like I said, even down to the weight, how much things should weigh, to the amount of gold that he wanted used, everything. And they followed them perfect, and they did everything exact. That's what we talked about. These why is Israel God's chosen people? Man, when they're on, they're on. They can't be beat. When they are for God and their heart is right and they are God, I don't think God could give anybody these detailed instructions besides Israel and get exactly what he said. Yeah. You know, I mean, he when he said, I want it done like this, and gave all those exact details, Israel, that's how they done it. They done it exactly the way he wanted it.
Solomon had the wisdom.
He had wisdom. Yeah.
But he wanted to get Scott on the board with it.
Yeah, that's what he asked for, which was the best move he could have made on his part. He was a young guy when he became king. I don't know his exact age, but he was pretty young, and because he admits it, he says, "I'm just a young guy. I don't really know. I gotta go in these meetings with older people, advisors, and they could sway you their way. You know, they say, oh, you don't want to do that, do it this way, or you don't want to go that way, do it this way. You got to give me the wisdom to know what I need to do, right. What decisions I need to make, and he did, and God took care of him, and there was one more thing on the iron I was telling you about. Remember way back when we talked about, the two lines of Seth and Cain, the good guys and the bad guys, how Cain's line was all his descendants, they were prospering and doing good and everything. And I told you the story about this guy named Lamech that had 2 wives and he killed a young guy, and he was telling his wives that story about, you know, if Cain was forgiven 7 times, I should be forgiven 70 times 7, you know, all that story. Well, his kids, remember, his kids were Jabal, who was he was like a animal herder. He was really, he fine-tuned the breeding and raising of animals. He made it prosper and take off and do really good. He was the father of that. And then he had another brother named Jubal. He was the founder of musical instruments, the harp and the organ and all that. He did all that stuff. Well, then he had another son named Tubal-Cain, and he was the first blacksmith. He was a worker of brass and iron, and did all this stuff with started making tools of war and different things. That comes from the line of Cain. That too could be why God said he didn't like iron, because it comes from Cain's line. And they were all prospering and doing good. And God's people, when you go back and talk about Seth, his son, all it says is, and man started to worship the Lord. They started worshiping the Lord, the good guys, and so that might be why God wasn't crazy about the use of iron too. He, like I said, whatever reason, that went all the way back to Moses. He told Moses, and we know those stories. And build the altar. Don't use a tool on it. You just get the rock and you build the rock just like it is. And you know, that goes back to us when we try to lead somebody to the Lord. We don't want to change them, do we? We want God to change them. If they need changing, we let God do it. We just bring them as they are. That's what we say, come as you are. Just like those stones. God wanted those stones just like he made them. He didn't want man shaping them and hitting them with tools of iron and war.